The chamber fell silent as the verdict was read. Ambassador Chen Wei stood motionless in the center of the grand hall, surrounded by representatives from 400 civilizations. The crystalline walls of the Galactic Council building refracted light into rainbow patterns that danced across the assembled aliens, but Chen saw none of it. His dark eyes remained fixed on High Chancellor Vrex, the towering insectoid who held humanity's fate in his mandibles. "The vote is final," Vrex announced, his voice translated into every language simultaneously through neural implants. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. Your species has 30 standard rotations to remove all presence from Council space. Any human vessels remaining after this deadline will be destroyed without warning." Chen's jaw tightened, but he maintained his diplomatic composure. Behind him, the small human delegation stood frozen in disbelief. They had expected restrictions, perhaps sanctions, but not this. Not complete expulsion. The charges had been absurd from the start. Humanity was too aggressive, too unpredictable, too young to participate in galactic affairs. The Council claimed humans disrupted trade negotiations with their blunt honesty. They said human military vessels made other species uncomfortable with their bristling weapons and paranoid security protocols. The final straw, apparently, was when a human colony ship had defended itself against pirates in a Council-protected trade route, destroying 3 vessels that had attacked first. The Council called it excessive force. Humans called it survival. "We followed every law," Chen said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper but carried through the hall by hidden microphones. "We defended ourselves when attacked. We traded fairly. We contributed technology and resources. And this is how you repay us?" Vrex's compound eyes glittered with what might have been contempt. "Your species does not understand the delicate balance required for peace. You come from a world where only one sapient species evolved. You know nothing of sharing, of compromise, of the careful dance required when hundreds of civilizations must coexist." Chen wanted to laugh at the irony. Humanity had spent millennia warring amongst itself, learning through blood and fire how to coexist. But he held his tongue. There was no point in arguing now. The Zalorian ambassador, a gelatinous being that floated in a containment sphere, burbled softly. "Perhaps expulsion is too harsh. Could we not simply limit human expansion? Restrict their military?" "The vote is taken," Vrex interrupted. "The decision stands. Humanity will leave Council space." As Chen turned to leave, he caught the expressions of various ambassadors. The Tharnix representative looked almost sympathetic, its feathers ruffled in distress. The Korvax delegation seemed smug, their crystalline faces reflecting satisfaction. The Zalarians appeared uncertain, shifting colors in their spheres. But most showed indifference. Humanity was a young species, barely 2 centuries in space. They were expendable. The walk back to the human quarters felt endless. Chen's team surrounded him, some fighting back tears, others burning with quiet rage. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the xenobiologist who had spent 15 years building relationships with alien species, looked shattered. 30 days, she whispered. "How do we evacuate 57 colony worlds in 30 days? Chen didn't answer because he didn't have one. The human presence in Council space was vast. 17 million people lived on various worlds, stations, and ships throughout the galaxy, mining operations, research facilities, diplomatic outposts, families who had made lives among the stars. How could they abandon everything they had built? Back in their quarters, Chen immediately opened a quantum link to Earth. The lag was minimal, but each second felt like an eternity. When Director Amari's face appeared on the screen, Chen saw she already knew. "The vote went against us," she said. "It wasn't a question. Unanimously. They want us gone in 30 days. Amari's expression hardened. She was a veteran of the resource wars. A soldier who had risen through chaos to lead humanity's stellar expansion. "Begin evacuation procedures immediately. Prioritize civilians and non-essential personnel. Military vessels will cover the withdrawal. Director, we have 17 million people spread across—" "I know the numbers, Chen." Amari leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. "But I need you to trust me on this. Start the evacuation. Make it visible. Let them see us scrambling to comply." Something in her tone made Chen pause. "What are you planning?" "Survival. The Council thinks they can dismiss humanity like we're some primitive species begging for scraps. They're about to learn otherwise." She glanced off screen, then back. "I'm calling an emergency session of the Sol Alliance. Every colony, every fleet commander, every research station, we're going to have a conversation about humanity's future. The screen went dark and Chen stood in silence. Around him, his team began organizing the monumental task of evacuation. Calls went out to every human settlement, every ship, every outpost. The message was simple: come home. But as Chen watched the organized chaos unfold, he couldn't shake Amari's words. Something was happening back in Sol's system, something bigger than simple evacuation plans. 3 days later, the first reports began filtering back. Human mining operations in the Outer Council territories had simply vanished overnight, taking their entire facilities with them. Not abandoned, but systematically dismantled and hauled away. Months' worth of extracted resources simply gone. The Korvax trade minister filed an immediate complaint. Those resources had been contracted for sale to the council. Taking them was theft. Chen's response was cold and precise. The contract specified delivery through council trade routes. As we are no longer part of the council, those routes are closed to us. The resources remain human property. In the asteroid fields of the Zirion Belt, 3 human research stations ceased all communication. Council scouts sent to investigate found them completely stripped. Not even life support systems remained. The researchers were gone, and with them went 15 years of quantum physics research the Council had been monitoring with great interest. On the colony world of New Shanghai, 200,000 humans began boarding transport ships. The Council governor arrived to oversee the evacuation, expecting chaos and desperation. Instead, he found perfect order. Humans loaded cargo with military efficiency, taking everything they could carry and destroying what they couldn't. When the governor protested the destruction of infrastructure, the colonial administrator smiled coldly. The buildings were constructed with human resources and human labor. If we cannot take them, no one will have them. By the 10th day, the council began to realize something was wrong. Humans weren't just leaving. They were stripping entire regions of anything useful. Every mine, every station, every research facility was being systematically emptied. The council had expected humanity to flee in disarray, abandoning their investments in the rush to evacuate. Instead, they faced an organized withdrawal that left nothing behind. High Chancellor Vrex called an emergency session. This is unacceptable. They are sabotaging years of development. The Zalorian ambassador bubbled uncertainly. They are only taking what is theirs. Our own laws protect property rights. They are destroying what they cannot take. Also their right, the Tharnix delegate noted quietly. We voted to expel them. We cannot now complain when they choose to leave completely. Vrex's mandibles clacked in frustration. He had expected the humans to beg for mercy, to plead for more time, to leave behind their investments as payment for past transgressions. Instead, they were scorching the earth behind them. And in the Sol system, far beyond council space, something else was happening. Something the council wouldn't learn about until it was far too late. Director Amari stood before the largest gathering of human leadership in history. The quantum conference chamber displayed hundreds of faces, each representing a different faction of humanity spread across the stars. Colony governors, fleet admirals, corporate executives, research directors, and political leaders from Earth's various nations all waited for her to speak. They expelled us, she began simply. The Galactic Council has decided that humanity is too dangerous, too unpredictable to exist alongside the civilized species of the galaxy. We have 30 days to leave their territory. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some faces showed anger, others fear, many displayed determination. We will comply, Amari continued, and the murmurs grew louder. She raised a hand for silence. We will leave council space, but we will not crawl back to Earth with our tails between our legs. We will not abandon the stars because some bureaucratic aliens decided we don't belong. Instead, we're going to do what humanity has always done when faced with impossible odds. We adapt, we overcome, we take what's ours. Admiral Zhao of the 5th Fleet leaned forward on his screen. What exactly are you proposing, Director? Amari smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. The Council controls the inner galaxy, the rich core worlds and established trade routes. But the galaxy is vast. The outer spiral arms, the frontier sectors, the unexplored regions beyond Council territory. These areas are considered too dangerous, too remote, too worthless for the Council to bother with. They're about to become ours. Governor Williams of the Titan colony raised an objection. Those regions are unexplored for good reason. No jump gate network, hostile conditions, unknown dangers. It would take decades to establish ourselves there. Which is exactly why no one else wants them, Amari replied. But we're not like the council species. They grew comfortable in their protected space, trading safely along established routes, living on worlds their ancestors terraformed millennia ago. They've forgotten how to pioneer. We haven't. Humanity spread across Earth's harshest environments before we even left our world. We built cities in deserts, jungles, Arctic wastes, and ocean floors. We survived ice ages and nuclear wars. We thrived in places that should have killed us. Dr. Chen Yun, head of the Mars Terraforming Initiative, spoke up. You want us to colonize the frontier. Build a new human civilization outside Council reach. Not just colonize, Amari corrected. Dominate. The Council thinks they're getting rid of a problem. They're actually unleashing us. Right now we're playing by their rules. Restricted by their laws, limited by their regulations. Once we're out of Council space, we're free to do things our way. The implications settled over the Assembly like a heavy blanket. Free from Council oversight meant free from Council restrictions. The technology treaties that limited human military development. The expansion accords that controlled colony growth. The trade regulations that hampered human economic power. All of it would become meaningless. The Council banned military AI research, Admiral Zhao said slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. They restricted quantum weapon development. They limited our ship sizes and fleet numbers. They also forced us to use their jump gate network, added CEO Rivera of Stellar Industries, which meant paying their fees and following their routes. In uncontrolled space, we could build our own network. Amari nodded. Exactly. And that's just the beginning. Dr. Okonkwo, please share your report. A new face appeared on the main screen, a tired-looking woman with gray-streaked hair. For the past 5 years, my team has been cataloging systems in the outer spiral arms. The Council dismissed this region as worthless because it lacks their preferred planet types, but by human standards, it's a goldmine. We've identified over 3,000 systems with exploitable resources, heavy metals, rare elements, energy-rich environments. The Council species need specific atmospheric conditions and gravity ranges. We're far more adaptable. Images flashed across screens showing system after system. Gas giants with valuable atmospheric compounds. Asteroid belts rich in platinum and uranium. Ice worlds with frozen methane reserves. To the Council species, these were worthless rocks. To humanity, they were treasure troves. There's more, Dr. Okonkwo continued. We found something the Council either doesn't know about or has kept very quiet. Evidence of an ancient civilization in the frontier sectors. Ruins, orbital structures, technology. Whoever they were advanced. Far more advanced than the current Council species. The Assembly erupted into excited chatter. Ancient alien technology was the stuff of legends, the kind of discovery that could catapult a civilization forward by centuries. Amari let them talk for a moment before calling for order. This is our opportunity. While the Council congratulates itself for expelling the dangerous humans, we'll be building something they can't imagine, a human empire, unrestricted and unstoppable. Empire is a strong word, cautioned Ambassador Liu from the Earth delegation. It carries implications of conquest and domination. Then let me be clear about those implications, Amari said firmly. The Council betrayed us. They took our contributions, benefited from our innovations, and then threw us out when we didn't fit their comfortable worldview. I'm not interested in revenge, but I am absolutely committed to ensuring humanity never again depends on alien approval for survival. If that means building an empire, so be it. Over the next several hours, they hammered out the details. The evacuation from Council space would continue as ordered, but it would be strategic. Critical infrastructure would be dismantled and taken. Research data would be secured. Every resource that could be moved would be hauled back to human territory. What couldn't be moved would be destroyed to deny the Council any benefit. Fleet Admiral Chen proposed a bold strategy. We split our forces. The civilian evacuation continues openly, making a show of compliance. Meanwhile, our military and industrial assets quietly begin positioning in the frontier sectors. By the time the Council realizes we're not returning to Sol system, we'll already have established bases beyond their reach. We'll need supplies, Governor Rahman noted. Food, water, construction materials. The frontier worlds won't be immediately habitable. We've been preparing for this possibility, revealed Director Park of Agricultural Operations. Not expulsion specifically, but rapid expansion. We have seed vaults, genetic banks, and portable hydroponics facilities. Enough to sustain 5 million people for 5 years while we establish permanent production. CEO Rivera smiled. Stellar Industries has been developing modular station designs that can be deployed rapidly. We can have basic habitats operational in weeks rather than months. They won't be comfortable, but they'll be functional. The plans grew more detailed and more ambitious. Dr. Martinez proposed establishing research stations to study the ancient alien ruins. Admiral Zhao outlined a network of military outposts to secure key systems. Governor Williams suggested a lottery system for colonists, giving everyone a fair chance to join the frontier expansion. Through it all, Amari watched humanity's leadership transform crisis into opportunity. This was what made humans dangerous to the Council, not their weapons or their aggression, but their absolute refusal to accept defeat. Every setback became a learning opportunity. Every obstacle became a challenge to overcome. The Council had tried to eliminate a threat by expelling them. Instead, they had freed humanity from the chains of galactic law. As the conference wound down, Amari addressed them one final time. We have 30 days. 30 days to evacuate 17 million people from Council space. 30 days to secure our assets and position our forces. 30 days to prepare for the greatest expansion in human history. When this is over, the Council will look to the frontier and see a new power rising. A power they created by pushing us out, and they'll realize their mistake far too late to do anything about it. The assembly erupted in determined agreement. Across hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships, humanity began to move with purpose. The evacuation that the Council expected to see chaos and desperation became something else entirely. It became a mobilization. In Council space, High Chancellor Vrex received reports of human activity with growing unease. They were leaving, yes, but not in the panicked flight he had anticipated. Human ships moved in organized convoys. Mining operations were systematically stripped rather than abandoned. Research stations went dark after transmitting final data packets back to human space. They're taking everything, his aide reported nervously. Every tool, every component, every scrap of useful material. They're even dismantling the prefab buildings. Vrex clicked his mandibles in thought. Something felt wrong about this. The humans were too organized, too efficient. Where was the anger, the protests, the desperate pleas for mercy? Instead, there was only cold, methodical compliance. He pulled up star charts tracking human ship movements. Most were indeed heading back toward Sol system as expected. But some, a significant number, were diverging. Heading not home but outward, toward the frontier sectors, toward uncontrolled space. A cold feeling settled over Vrex. What if they had made a terrible mistake? The 30th day arrived with remarkable precision. At exactly the deadline hour, the last official human vessel crossed out of Council space. Ambassador Chen transmitted a final message to the Council, his face appearing on screens throughout the chamber where this had all begun. The human evacuation is complete, he announced formally. As requested, no human presence remains in Council territory. We thank the Council for the opportunity to have participated in galactic civilization. However, briefly, may your futures be prosperous. The transmission ended. Chen's face disappeared, replaced by the empty void of space where his ship had been. High Chancellor Vrex felt no satisfaction in this victory. The humans had been too cooperative, too organized. 4 weeks ago, they had expelled a potentially dangerous species. Now, watching the empty space where human ships had been, Vrex wondered what they had actually accomplished. His concerns proved justified within days. Reports began flooding in from Council trade vessels operating near the frontier sectors. Human ships, dozens of them moving through uncontrolled space, not fleeing home to Sol, but establishing new positions in regions the Council had always considered worthless. They're building stations, the Zalorian ambassador reported at an emergency session. We detected 3 construction sites in the outer reach alone. Military-grade facilities, not civilian colonies. That's outside Council jurisdiction, the Tharnix delegate pointed out. They're free to build wherever they wish in uncontrolled space. Vrex wanted to argue but couldn't. The frontier sectors weren't claimed by any Council member. They were too remote, too dangerous, too lacking in the resources Council species valued. If humans wanted to waste their time there, that was their choice. Except it wasn't a waste of time, and this became clear as weeks turned into months. Deep in the frontier sectors, humanity was transforming. Free from Council restrictions, human ingenuity exploded in directions that had been legally impossible before. Dr. Reeves stood on the observation deck of Prometheus Station, watching construction drones swarm around the skeletal framework of a new shipyard. The station itself had been operational for only 3 weeks, assembled from modular components hauled from Council space. How many ships can we build simultaneously? Director Amari's voice came through his comm unit. With current capacity, 8 vessels at a time. Once the second shipyard comes online next month, we'll double that. And these won't be the restricted designs the Council forced on us. We're implementing the Titan-class specifications. There was satisfaction in Amari's voice. Good. The Council limited our warships to 300 meters maximum length. How big are the Titan-class? Just over 1 kilometer. With proper shielding, enhanced weapons arrays, and military-grade AI systems. Everything the Council banned. Dr. Reeves pulled up holographic displays showing the ship designs. They were beautiful in a deadly way. Sleek predators of space rather than the bulky restricted vessels humans had operated under Council law. Across the frontier, similar transformations were occurring. On the ice world of New Siberia, colonists established mining operations extracting heavy metals from subsurface deposits. The work was brutal and dangerous, but humans had always thrived in harsh conditions. Within 2 months, they were shipping processed materials to construction sites throughout the sector. Dr. Okonkwo led an expedition to the ancient ruins she had identified. What they found exceeded all expectations. The structures were millions of years old, built by a civilization that had mastered technology far beyond current galactic standards. Quantum reactors that still functioned after eons, materials that self-repaired molecular damage, propulsion systems based on principles human scientists barely understood. This changes everything, Dr. Okonkwo transmitted back to command. This technology, if we can understand and replicate it, puts us centuries ahead of the Council. No wonder they never thoroughly explored out here. If they knew this existed, they would have claimed it long ago. But the Council didn't know, or if they did, they had kept it very quiet. The ruins were scattered across dozens of systems, carefully hidden or simply overlooked by species that lacked human curiosity and determination. While Council races stayed in their comfortable established territories, humans had always been driven to explore the unknown. Now that drive was paying dividends beyond imagining. Admiral Zhao commanded the human military expansion with ruthless efficiency. His fleets established defensive positions throughout the frontier, creating a network of fortified systems that would make any invasion prohibitively costly. But these weren't just defensive positions. They were forward operating bases, staging grounds for deeper expansion into unexplored space. The Council thinks we're hiding out here, licking our wounds, he told his senior officers during a strategy session. They believe we'll eventually come crawling back, begging for readmission. They're wrong. We're not building a refuge. We're building a foundation for something greater. His officers understood. Under Council law, humanity had been restricted to slow, controlled expansion. A few new colonies per decade, carefully approved and monitored. Out here, there were no restrictions. Human colony ships launched weekly, targeting systems the Council had dismissed as worthless. Each new world became another piece of humanity's growing empire. The human population in frontier space grew exponentially. People left the safety of Sol system, drawn by opportunity and freedom. These weren't desperate refugees, but pioneers, the same breed of humans who had once crossed Earth's oceans and deserts seeking new horizons. The frontier offered challenges, dangers, and hardships, but it also offered something the Council territories never could: the chance to build something entirely new, unrestricted by ancient laws and alien oversight. 6 months after expulsion, the first Titan-class warship rolled out of Prometheus Station's completed shipyard. They named it Defiance, a not-so-subtle message to anyone paying attention. The ship was magnificent, bristling with weapons that would have been illegal under Council law. Its AI systems operated with sophistication banned by treaty. Its engines could propel it faster than any Council vessel. It was everything humanity had been prevented from building, finally brought to life. Director Amari attended the christening ceremony via quantum link, her face appearing on screens throughout the massive vessel. "This ship represents more than human engineering," she told the assembled crew. "It represents human freedom. The Council tried to limit us to keep us weak and dependent. Defiance shows what we can accomplish when those chains are broken. She's the first of a new fleet, the vanguard of a new era. The Council expelled us expecting us to fade into obscurity. Instead, we're going to become impossible to ignore. The crew cheered, their voices echoing through Defiance's corridors. These were men and women who had chosen the frontier over the safety of established space. They understood what was being built here, and they were proud to be part of it. But not everyone in human space was celebrating. Back in Sol system, political leaders grew increasingly concerned about the frontier developments. Ambassador Liu called an emergency session with Director Amari, his face tight with worry on the quantum link. "You're building a military empire," he accused. "This isn't the defensive expansion you proposed. These are preparations for war." Amari met his gaze steadily. "These are preparations for survival. The Council proved they'll turn on us the moment we become inconvenient. I'm ensuring that never happens again. By threatening them, by building warships specifically designed to counter Council vessels, you're going to provoke exactly the conflict you claim to want to avoid. The Council respects strength, not weakness. If we returned to Sol and stayed there, quietly rebuilding, they'd eventually move against us again. There would be some new excuse, some new reason we needed to be controlled or eliminated. But if we become powerful enough, numerous enough, spread across enough systems, they'll have no choice but to accept our existence." Liu shook his head. "This is dangerous, Anya. You're playing a game with the entire human species at stake. The Council started this game when they expelled us." "I'm just refusing to lose." The argument continued, but Amari remained unmoved. She had spent decades in military service, had seen what happened to weak nations and vulnerable peoples. The galaxy was not a friendly place, and the Galactic Council was not humanity's friend. They had proven that. Now humanity would prove something in return. As months became years, the transformation of the frontier continued. Human technology advanced rapidly, combining Council innovations stolen during the evacuation with discoveries from ancient ruins and entirely new developments born from unrestricted research. Quantum communications networks linked scattered human settlements across thousands of light years. Jump gate technology, once monopolized by the Council, was reverse-engineered and improved. Humans began building their own gate network, independent of Council infrastructure. The first human-built jump gate activated 18 months after expulsion, connecting two frontier systems and reducing travel time from weeks to minutes. More gates followed, each one extending humanity's reach deeper into unexplored space. The Council had taken decades to build their network. 3 years after expulsion, first contact between human and Council vessels occurred in the Deneb sector. Neither side had planned for it, but the expanding human frontier was inevitably intersecting with Council patrol routes. The Council cruiser, Harmonious Dawn, encountered a human exploration fleet investigating an uncharted system. Captain Tashari of the Harmonious Dawn studied her sensors with growing unease. 3 human vessels, each larger than her own ship, holding position near a gas giant. Their weapon systems were active but not locked on. Waiting. She opened a communication channel. "Human vessels, this is Captain Tashari of the Galactic Council patrol ship Harmonious Dawn. You are operating near Council territory. State your intentions." The response came immediately, the human commander's face appearing on screen. He was young for a captain, probably in his 30s by human aging standards, with sharp eyes and a confident bearing. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the human exploration vessel Magellan. We're surveying this system which lies in uncontrolled space. Our apologies if we've caused concern, but we're operating well outside Council jurisdiction." Tashari checked her navigation charts. He was technically correct. The system was just beyond the boundary of claimed Council space, in the buffer zone that no member species had bothered to colonize. "Your presence here is concerning. The Council would prefer that human expansion not approach our borders." Rodriguez smiled, and it wasn't entirely friendly. "The Council expelled us from your territory 3 years ago. We've honored that expulsion completely. But you don't get to dictate where we go in free space, Captain. This system is unclaimed, and we're within our rights to explore it. The Council has security concerns regarding human military buildup in frontier regions. Then perhaps the Council shouldn't have forced us to relocate to frontier regions." Rodriguez's tone remained polite, but steel underlay his words. "We're not looking for conflict, Captain. We're simply exercising our right to exist and expand. If the Council has issues with that, I suggest you take it up with your leadership. We're done being told where we can and cannot go." The transmission ended before Tasheri could respond. She watched the human ships continue their survey work, pointedly ignoring her presence. After a tense hour, she ordered her ship to withdraw and filed a report that would send shockwaves through Council leadership. Humans were no longer the compliant junior species they had expelled. They had become something else, something confident and powerful, and they were expanding directly toward Council space. The incident sparked fierce debate in the Council chambers. Some delegates advocated for immediate military action, arguing that humans needed to be contained before they became a genuine threat. Others urged diplomacy, suggesting negotiations to establish clear borders and peaceful coexistence. A few, like the Zalorian ambassador, quietly noted that the Council had created this situation and perhaps shouldn't be surprised by the consequences. High Chancellor Vrex found himself in an impossible position. Military action against humans would be risky. Their technology had advanced dramatically, their fleet had grown substantially, and they showed no signs of backing down. But allowing unrestricted human expansion meant eventually facing a power that rivaled the Council itself. He chose a middle path, dispatching diplomatic envoys to human frontier space with proposals for territorial agreements and trade negotiations. Perhaps they could bring humans back into the fold, under better terms than before. It was an acknowledgement, though unspoken, that expulsion had been a mistake. Director Amari received the Council envoys aboard Prometheus Station, now a massive facility that served as humanity's frontier capital. She listened to their proposals with an expression that revealed nothing. Territorial boundaries, mutual, defense pacts, technology sharing agreements, and a path toward eventual Council membership. Everything was on offer except the one thing that mattered. "I notice your proposals include significant restrictions on human military capabilities," Amari observed. "Fleet size limits, weapons restrictions, technology treaties. Essentially the same chains you placed on us before, just with prettier language." The lead envoy, a diplomatic Tharnix named Korith, ruffled his feathers nervously. "The Council must ensure regional stability. These provisions are standard for all member species." "We're not a member species anymore. You expelled us, remember?" Amari leaned back in her chair, studying the envoys with cold calculation. "The Council had its chance to treat humanity as equals. You chose differently. Now you want us to voluntarily accept the same restrictions that we've spent 3 years breaking free from. Why would we do that?" "Because the alternative is conflict," Korith said quietly. "Human expansion cannot continue indefinitely without intersecting with Council interests. Better to establish peaceful boundaries now than to risk war later." "War." Amari let the word hang in the air. "Is that a threat, Envoy Korith?" "An observation. The Council is powerful. War would be costly for everyone. Then I suggest the Council learn to share the galaxy." Amari stood, signaling the meeting's end. "Humanity will continue expanding into unclaimed space. We will defend ourselves if attacked. We will trade with any species that wishes to trade with us. But we will not accept Council oversight ever again. If the Council can live with that, we can coexist peacefully. If not, then yes, war is inevitable. But I promise you, it won't be the easy victory you're imagining." The envoys departed with nothing accomplished. Their report back to the Council was grim. Humans would not submit to any form of Council authority. They were building an independent power structure in frontier space, and they were succeeding beyond anyone's expectations. 6 months later, the situation escalated. A human mining operation in the Arcturus sector came under attack by Korvax raiders. The Korvax Collective, one of the most aggressive Council members, had grown increasingly hostile toward human expansion. Their raid was calculated, designed to test human resolve and send a message about who really controlled these regions. They chose the wrong target. The mining station transmitted a distress signal that reached the nearest human military outpost within minutes. Admiral Zhao himself commanded the response fleet. 5 Titan-class warships, including Defiance, jumped into the Arcturus sector, while the Korvax raiders were still attacking the station. What followed was brief and devastating. The Korvax ships, were advanced by Council standards, but they were unprepared for human military technology, unbounded by treaty restrictions. Defiance alone carried more firepower than the entire Raider squadron. Human AI targeting systems achieved lock before the Korvax even realized they were under attack. Enhanced weapon systems penetrated shields the Council had considered state-of-the-art. The battle lasted 7 minutes. 4 Korvax ships were destroyed outright. 2 more were crippled and forced to surrender. The mining station sustained minor damage. Human casualties numbered 0. Admiral Zhao broadcast a message on all Council frequencies, ensuring every member species would hear his words. This is Admiral Zhao of the Human Frontier Fleet. The unprovoked attack on our mining facility has been repelled. Let this serve as clear notice to all Council members. Human settlements are defended. Any further attacks will be met with overwhelming force. We seek peace, but we are fully prepared for war. The message created chaos in Council chambers. The Korvax ambassador denied any official involvement, claiming the raiders were independent criminals. But everyone knew the truth. The Korvax Collective had tested humanity's strength and found it formidable. The ease with which human warships had destroyed supposedly advanced raiders sent a clear message throughout the galaxy. Humanity was no longer a minor species to be dismissed or bullied. They had become a military power capable of standing against Council forces. Trade relationships began shifting in unexpected ways. Several independent merchant guilds operating on the fringes of Council space reached out to human settlements. They were interested in the resources humans were extracting from frontier worlds, resources the Council undervalued, but these merchants recognized as valuable. Human mining operations were pulling rare elements from hostile environments the Council species couldn't easily access. Within months, an alternative economy began forming. Human goods flowing to non-Council markets, bypassing official trade routes entirely. The Council's monopoly on galactic commerce was developing cracks, and those cracks were widening as more traders recognized the profit potential in dealing with humans. Governor Williams of New Siberia found himself negotiating with a Zalarian merchant consortium interested in heavy metals from his Iceworld operations. Your prices are better than Council suppliers, the Zalarian representative bubbled through its translator. And your delivery schedules are more reliable. The Council has become complacent, charging premium prices for mediocre service. We're hungry for trade partners, Williams admitted. The Council wanted us isolated. Instead, they've motivated us to find alternatives. We're willing to offer favorable terms to establish long-term partnerships. The deal was struck, the first of many. Human trade networks expanded rapidly, connecting with independent species, fringe colonies, and even some Council members who quietly violated official sanctions for economic advantage. Money talked in any language, and humans were offering competitive prices for quality goods. This economic expansion worried the Council more than military developments. They could potentially counter human warships with their own forces. But economic influence was harder to fight. If humans became essential trade partners for significant portions of the galaxy, expelling them had only created a powerful, independent rival. The Tharnix Confederation was first to break ranks officially. Their ambassador approached Prometheus Station with a proposal that acknowledged reality, established formal diplomatic and trade relations with human frontier territories, independent of Council approval. The Tharnix had always been pragmatic, and they recognized which way the wind was blowing. Director Amari welcomed the Tharnix ambassador with genuine warmth. Your people voted against our expulsion, she recalled. We haven't forgotten that. The Confederation believes the expulsion was a mistake, the ambassador replied, his feathers displaying colors of respect and friendship. We would prefer to build bridges rather than walls. Humanity has accomplished remarkable things in 3 years. The Tharnix people would benefit from partnership with your kind. Partnership, not supervision, Amari clarified. We're equals in any agreement we make. Understood and accepted. The Tharnix Confederation has no interest in controlling humanity. We simply wish to trade, share knowledge, and perhaps coordinate on mutual security concerns. The galaxy is large enough for multiple powers to coexist. The agreement was signed within weeks. Human and Tharnix vessels began joint patrols in border regions. Trade convoys moved freely between their territories. Scientific teams collaborated on research projects. It was everything the Council relationship should have been but never was, because it was built on mutual respect rather than hierarchical control. Other species took notice. The Zalarian Republic quietly opened diplomatic channels. Several smaller civilizations, long overshadowed by dominant council members, saw opportunity in aligning with the rising human power. Humanity was gaining allies not through threats or coercion, but by offering what the council never had: genuine partnership between equals. High Chancellor Vrex watched his careful galactic order crumbling. The council's authority rested on being the sole power structure in civilized space. But now humans were building an alternative, and species were choosing that alternative. Every new human alliance weakened the council's position. He called an emergency session, his tone grave. "We face a crisis. Human influence is spreading throughout frontier regions and beyond. Species that should be seeking council membership are instead aligning with humanity. If this continues, we risk irrelevance." The Korvax ambassador, still bitter about the defeat of their raiders, advocated for military action. "We should strike now before they grow stronger. A coordinated council fleet could overwhelm human positions." At what cost? The Zalorian ambassador's colors shifted to worried yellow. Their warships defeated our raiders easily. A full military campaign would be expensive and bloody, and it would unite every species aligned with humanity against us. We could win such a war, but the victory would be Pyrrhic. Then what do you suggest? We simply accept human expansion, allow them to build an empire on our borders. "We accept reality," the Zalorian replied. "We made a mistake 3 years ago. We can either compound that mistake with pointless conflict, or we can adapt to a galaxy with 2 major powers instead of 1. The Council survived for millennia by being flexible. Perhaps it's time to be flexible again." The debate raged for hours, but slowly consensus formed. Not agreement, but resignation. The Council couldn't reverse expulsion without appearing weak. They couldn't defeat humanity without catastrophic losses. Their only real option was to acknowledge the new reality and try to maintain relevance in a changed galaxy. Ambassador Chen received an unexpected communication from High Chancellor Vrex himself. It was a private channel, no other council members listening. Vrex's usual arrogance was absent, replaced by something approaching respect. "Ambassador Chen, I believe we need to talk. Off the record, leader to leader. The Council and humanity are on a collision course that serves neither of our interests." Chen was surprised but cautious. "I'm listening, Chancellor." "The Council made an error in expelling humanity. I won't apologize, politics doesn't work that way. But I can acknowledge reality. You've built something impressive in frontier space, something the Council can't ignore or eliminate without tremendous cost. Perhaps it's time we discussed how 2 powers can share a galaxy without destroying it." "What exactly are you proposing?" "Informal understanding. The Council acknowledges human sovereignty over frontier territories. Humanity agrees not to expand into core Council space. We establish trade protocols and security cooperation where our interests align. No treaties, no formal agreements that would require Council vote. Just practical arrangements between powers that recognize each other's strength." Chen considered carefully. This wasn't the surrender he might have hoped for, but it was acknowledgement, real acknowledgement of humanity's position. "I'll need to consult with Director Amari and our leadership. But I think this is a conversation worth having." "Good, because the alternative benefits no one. War would be costly for both sides. But more than that, it would distract us from a larger truth. The galaxy is vast, Ambassador. Vast enough for humans and the Council both. Perhaps even vast enough for us to cooperate on occasion, when our interests align against genuine threats." The call ended, leaving Chen thoughtful. Humanity had set out to survive expulsion and built an empire instead. Now the Council, which had tried to eliminate them as a problem, was seeking accommodation. It was a remarkable reversal, accomplished in just 3 years through determination, innovation, and refusing to accept defeat. He drafted a report for Director Amari, outlining Vrex's proposal and his own thoughts. The message concluded with a question that would define humanity's future. "We've proven we can survive outside the Council. We've proven we can thrive. Now we must decide what kind of power we want to be. Do we seek domination, or do we build something better than what expelled us?" Director Amari read Chen's report 3 times before responding. The question he posed deserved careful consideration. Humanity had achieved in 3 years what should have taken decades. They controlled hundreds of systems, commanded a powerful military, and had forged alliances that rivaled the Council itself. The choice before them would determine not just humanity's future, but the future of galactic civilization. She called a summit, gathering every major human leader in frontier space. This time they met in person, aboard the newly completed Station Horizon, humanity's largest orbital facility. The conference hall overlooked a spectacular view of the binary star system the station orbited, a constant reminder of how far humanity had come. "We've received an offer from High Chancellor Vrex," Amari began without preamble. "Informal recognition of our territories in exchange for agreeing not to expand into Council core space. It's not everything we might want, but it's acknowledgement that we exist as a legitimate power." Admiral Zhao frowned. "It's also an attempt to contain us. They're drawing a line and expecting us to stay behind it." "True," Amari acknowledged, "but we should consider what we actually want. Do we need to expand into Council space? The frontier offers thousands of unclaimed systems. We could grow for centuries without ever touching their territory." Governor Rahman leaned forward, his weathered face thoughtful. "The real question is whether we trust them. They expelled us once. What prevents them from turning on us again when circumstances change?" Dr. Okonkwo spoke up from her position near the viewing window. "I've been studying the ancient ruins extensively. The civilization that built them was incredibly advanced, far beyond either humans or the Council. But they're gone now. Extinct. We've found evidence suggesting they destroyed themselves through internal conflict and overexpansion. Perhaps there's a lesson there. You're suggesting we accept limits on our growth?" CEO Rivera looked skeptical. "After everything we've accomplished, we should voluntarily restrict ourselves?" "I'm suggesting we think strategically rather than reactively. The Council fears us because we're growing rapidly and unpredictably. If we demonstrate that we're not an existential threat to them, they have no reason to unite against us. But if we push aggressively toward their core territories, we force them into a corner. Cornered opponents are dangerous." Ambassador Liu, who had attended via quantum link from Earth, added his perspective. "Back home, there's growing concern about how aggressive frontier policy has become. Earth's population worries that we're building toward inevitable war. The economic costs are substantial, and the political pressure is increasing for some kind of settlement with the Council." Amari had expected this. Earth remained the psychological heart of humanity, even if frontier territories now rivaled it in population and economic power. Ignoring Earth's concerns would create internal divisions that could prove as dangerous as external threats. "I'm not suggesting we surrender what we've built," she clarified. "But perhaps we can be strategic about how we use it. The Council expelled us expecting us to fade away. Instead, we've become powerful enough that they're seeking accommodation. That's a victory. The question is whether we leverage that victory wisely or squander it pursuing unlimited expansion that we don't actually need." The debate continued for hours, voices rising and falling as different perspectives clashed. The military leadership favored continued expansion, arguing that strength was humanity's only reliable protection. The colonial governors wanted stability, tired of constant mobilization and resource strain. The business leaders saw profit and peace but worried about dependence on Council markets. Earth representatives urged caution and diplomacy. Finally, Amari called for a vote, not on accepting Vrex's specific proposal, but on the broader question of humanity's strategic direction. Should they pursue unlimited expansion regardless of Council concerns, or should they seek a stable equilibrium that allowed both powers to coexist? The vote was close, but the result was clear. Humanity would pursue strategic stability over unlimited growth. They would accept informal boundaries with the Council, while maintaining absolute sovereignty over frontier territories. They would build alliances and trade relationships rather than seeking domination. They would be strong enough that no one could threaten them, but restrained enough that no one felt they had to. Ambassador Chen carried this decision back to High Chancellor Vrex. The negotiations were delicate, each side probing for advantage while trying to establish frameworks both could live with. The Council wanted guarantees that humans wouldn't expand toward their core systems. Humans wanted recognition of their sovereignty and assurances against future expulsion attempts. Slowly, an understanding emerged. Not a treaty. Both sides agreed formal agreements would be too politically difficult, but a set of practical arrangements. Humanity would focus expansion efforts on the outer spiral arms and regions away from Council space. The Council would recognize human territorial claims and withdraw objections to human alliances with independent species. Trade between human and Council territories would be permitted but not officially endorsed. Military forces would maintain respectful distances from each other's territory. It wasn't perfect, but it was workable. More importantly, it acknowledged what both sides knew. Humanity had fundamentally changed the galactic power structure, and the Council had to adapt. But not everyone accepted this new reality. The Korvax Collective, still bitter about their military defeat and ideologically opposed to sharing power, began planning their own response. They couldn't challenge humanity directly, not after their raiders had been so decisively defeated, but they could work to undermine human influence through other means. Korvax agents began appearing throughout frontier space, spreading propaganda about human aggression. They funded pirate groups to attack human trade convoys. They offered generous trade deals to human allies trying to pull them away from human influence. It was a shadow war, never quite breaking into open conflict but constantly probing for weaknesses. Admiral Zhao recognized the pattern immediately. The Korvax are testing us, trying to provoke a response they can use to rally Council support against us. If we retaliate openly, we prove their propaganda about human aggression. If we do nothing, we look weak. Then we respond proportionally, Amari decided. Counter their propaganda with truth. Protect our convoys, but don't pursue attackers into Council space. Strengthen relationships with our allies through genuine support, rather than trying to buy loyalty. We prove through actions that we're not the threat they claim. The strategy worked, but slowly. Human convoy escorts became so effective that pirate attacks dropped dramatically. Korvax propaganda fell flat when independent species could compare claims to reality. Human economic assistance to struggling colonies, offered without the strings Council aid typically carried, built genuine goodwill. Meanwhile, human technological advancement continued. Dr. Okonkwo's teams made breakthrough after breakthrough studying the ancient ruins. Quantum drive systems that made human ships faster than anything the Council operated. Energy shields that could withstand tremendous damage. Manufacturing techniques that dramatically reduced production costs. Each advancement widened the gap between human and Council capabilities. It wasn't that Council technology was primitive, they had millennia of accumulated knowledge, but they had grown complacent, advancing incrementally within established frameworks. Humans, driven by necessity and unlimited by treaty restrictions, innovated aggressively. The ancient technology provided templates, but humans adapted and improved rather than merely copying. Human creativity, the same trait that had troubled the Council, transformed alien discoveries into something distinctly human. The results were impressive enough that even some Council species began quietly approaching human researchers, seeking technology transfers that official channels would never approve. 5 years after expulsion, humanity held a celebration aboard Prometheus Station. Ambassador Chen, Director Amari, Admiral Zhao, and hundreds of other leaders gathered to mark the anniversary of their forced departure from Council space. The mood was triumphant but thoughtful. 5 years ago, they expelled us expecting us to fail, Amari addressed the assembly. They believed we couldn't survive without their guidance and support. They were wrong. We didn't just survive, we thrived. We built an independent civilization that rivals their ancient power. We proved that humanity doesn't need permission to reach for the stars. Cheers erupted, but Amari raised a hand for silence. But let's not forget the cost. We've lost people in accidents and attacks. We've worked ourselves to exhaustion building what we have. Families were separated, comfortable lives abandoned, safety traded for freedom. It wasn't easy, and it isn't over. The challenges we face now are different, but no less real. She gestured toward the viewing window, where distant stars shone against the void. The Council is learning to accept our existence, but acceptance isn't friendship. There are still species that resent us, that would destroy us if they could. We must remain vigilant, remain strong. But we must also remember why we're doing this. Not to dominate others, but to ensure humanity's freedom to choose its own path. 10 years after expulsion, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The change wasn't sudden or dramatic, but rather a gradual shift that accumulated until the old order seemed like distant history. Humanity had become an undeniable galactic power, and the Council had evolved from trying to contain them to learning to coexist with them. The frontier territories humanity claimed now held over 50 million people spread across 400 colonized systems. Human jump gates connected distant outposts, creating a transportation network that rivaled the Council's ancient infrastructure. Trade flowed freely between human space and dozens of partner civilizations. The economy humanity built operated independently of Council markets, though increasing overlap created complex interdependencies neither side had anticipated. Director Amari, now considerably older and bearing the weight of a decade's leadership, stood in her office aboard Prometheus Station reviewing reports from across human space. The station had expanded dramatically, now hosting over 2 million permanent residents and serving as the unofficial capital of frontier humanity. Through her window, she watched construction drones working on yet another expansion module. Growth never stopped, though its pace had steadied into something sustainable rather than the desperate expansion of early years. A chime announced a visitor. Ambassador Chen entered, looking tired but satisfied. He had spent the past decade shuttling between human and Council space, building relationships and managing crises. The informal understanding with the Council had held, largely because both sides recognized the alternative was worse. The latest trade figures are remarkable, Chen reported, pulling up holographic displays. Human exports to Council space have increased 40% over last year. Imports are up 35%. We're becoming economically integrated whether official policy acknowledges it or not. Amari studied the numbers with mixed feelings. Economic integration brought prosperity but also vulnerability. The Council hardliners must hate this. Every trade deal weakens their argument for isolation. They do, but they're increasingly irrelevant. Younger Council members, species that came to power during the past decade, don't share the old prejudices. They see humanity as just another civilization to deal with, not some existential threat. Time is on our side. Time, Amari reflected, was indeed changing everything. The Council representatives who had voted for expulsion were mostly retired or dead, replaced by new leadership with different priorities. Human children born in frontier space had never known Council authority, growing up free and confident. The past decade had created an entire generation on both sides with no personal investment in old conflicts. But peace, even informal peace, required constant maintenance. Which brought her to the reason for this meeting. Tell me about the Korvax situation. Your report suggested tensions are escalating again. Chen's expression darkened. The Korvax collective is facing internal problems. Economic stagnation, political instability, resource shortages. Their leadership is looking for external enemies to blame, and humanity remains their favorite target. We're seeing increased hostile rhetoric, military exercises near human borders, and intelligence suggesting they're courting other Council members for a potential alliance against us. After 10 years, they still haven't accepted reality? The Korvax built their identity around being the Council's military power. Our existence challenges that identity. They can't defeat us militarily, which humiliates them. They can't match our economic growth, which frightens them. So they cling to hostility because admitting we're legitimate means admitting they're no longer the dominant force they once were. Amari considered this carefully. Are they an actual threat or just noise? Noise mostly, but dangerous noise. They're isolated within the Council. Most members want nothing to do with renewed conflict. But the Korvax have enough military strength to cause serious damage if they act recklessly. We need to be prepared. Preparation meant different things than it had a decade ago. Admiral Zhao, now commander of all human military forces, had built a fleet that could defend against any conceivable threat. 30 Titan-class warships patrolled human space, backed by hundreds of smaller vessels and an extensive network of defensive installations. Human military technology, continually advancing through research into ancient artifacts and original innovation, remained superior to Council equivalents. But Amari had learned that military strength alone didn't guarantee security. Relationships mattered. Trust mattered. The network of alliances humanity had built provided as much protection as any battleship. She made a decision. Schedule a meeting with our allied ambassadors. If the Korvax are planning something, our friends need to know. And reach out to moderate Council members through back channels. The Tharnics, Zalarians, anyone with influence. Make it clear that any Korvax aggression will be met not just by human forces, but by a coalition. Sometimes preventing war requires showing potential aggressors they can't win. Over the following months, human diplomacy worked overtime, quiet conversations in diplomatic lounges, trade negotiations that carried unspoken security implications, joint military exercises with allied species. The message was clear: humanity wasn't isolated anymore. An attack on human territory would trigger responses from multiple civilizations. The Korvax leadership, facing unified opposition, rather than the divided response they had hoped for, retreated from their aggressive posturing. It wasn't surrender, just recognition that the moment wasn't right. But everyone understood this was merely postponing conflict, not preventing it. Eventually, the Korvax would have to either accept humanity's place in the galaxy or force a confrontation. Meanwhile, human society continued evolving in unexpected ways. The frontier colonies, born from necessity and hardship, had developed distinct cultural identities. New Shanghai on its ice world had become a center of mining innovation, its people tough and resourceful. New Siberia's colonists had created art forms inspired by their harsh environment, sculptures carved from ice that played with light in ways that captivated viewers across the galaxy. Prometheus Station itself had evolved into a cosmopolitan hub where dozens of species mingled, trading not just goods, but ideas and culture. Earth watched these developments with complicated feelings. Pride in humanity's achievements mixed with concern about losing connection with frontier colonies. The Old World remained politically important and symbolically central, but frontier territories now rivaled it in population and exceeded it in economic dynamism. Power was shifting, gradually but inevitably. Dr. Okonkwo, now director of the Frontier Research Institute, made a discovery that would accelerate everything. Deep in unexplored space, her survey teams found something extraordinary: an intact ancient facility, its systems still functional after millions of years. Not ruins, but a fully operational installation left behind by the civilization that had once dominated this region of the galaxy. The facility was vast, a construct built into an entire moon. Its power systems still hummed with life. Its data archives remained intact, and its purpose, revealed through months of careful study, was breathtaking. It was a manufacturing complex, capable of producing advanced technology on scales that made human industrial capacity look primitive. "This changes everything," Dr. Okonkwo reported to Director Amari during a secure briefing. "If we can understand and replicate this technology, we can build things we currently only dream about. Ships, stations, even planetary infrastructure. The economic implications are staggering. Can we control it?" Amari asked the critical question. Technology without control was dangerous, we're learning. The facility's AI systems are sophisticated but not hostile. They seem designed to accept direction from any sufficiently advanced civilization. It's like they were waiting for someone to come along and use them. The discovery remained classified while human scientists worked to understand the facility, but news inevitably leaked. Within months, the Council knew that humanity had found something significant. Requests for information came through diplomatic channels, then demands. The Council wanted access, arguing that knowledge of ancient civilizations should be shared for the common good. Amari's response was polite but firm. "The facility lies in human territory, discovered by human researchers. We'll share what we learn through normal scientific channels, but we're not granting unrestricted access to our sovereign space. The Council didn't support our research efforts, they don't get to claim our discoveries." The refusal created tension, but not crisis. The Council had no legal claim to the facility, and most members recognized that trying to seize it by force would trigger the war everyone wanted to avoid. They would have to accept that humanity controlled this incredible resource. Human manufacturing capacity exploded over the next 2 years as engineers learned to operate the ancient facility. Ships that would have taken months to build were completed in weeks. Station modules that required extensive resources were fabricated quickly. The economic advantages this provided transformed human space from a rising power to something approaching Council equivalents in industrial capacity. The Council watched this transformation with deep concern. For millennia, they had maintained dominance through accumulated resources and established infrastructure. Now humanity was catching up at impossible speed, bootstrapping their industrial base with technology the Council couldn't match. The economic balance of power was shifting faster than anyone had predicted. Young Council species, particularly those who had never supported human expulsion, began approaching human space with proposals. Technology sharing agreements, joint development projects, direct trade relationships that bypassed Council bureaucracy. They saw opportunity where older members saw threat, and they weren't willing to let ideology prevent them from benefiting from human advancement. High Chancellor Vrex, now in the twilight of his career, met privately with Ambassador Chen during a rare face-to-face encounter. The old insectoid looked weary, his compound eyes dimmed by time and stress. "We should have found a way to work with your species," Vrex admitted quietly. "The expulsion was a mistake driven by fear and arrogance. We threw away potential partnership because you didn't fit our comfortable expectations. Now you've surpassed us in many ways and we can only watch." Chen felt surprising sympathy for the old alien. Vrex had made decisions he believed were right, based on information and prejudices of his time. That those decisions proved disastrous didn't mean they weren't understandable. "The past is past, Chancellor. What matters is what we do now. Humanity bears no grudge against the Council. We just want to exist freely, to grow and explore without constraint. There's room in the galaxy for both our civilizations. Is there? Or will humanity inevitably expand until you challenge us for control of core territories? We don't want your territory. We never did. We just wanted respect, recognition as equals. You forced us to prove ourselves through separation. Now we have. Perhaps it's time both sides moved forward based on current reality rather than old grievances." Vrex made a sound that might have been laughter or sorrow. "You're more gracious than we deserve. But you're right. The galaxy has changed and we must change with it. The Council will never officially apologize for expulsion. Politics doesn't work that way. But perhaps we can build something better than what existed before." They talked for hours. Two old beings who had spent a decade managing an impossible situation. When they parted, nothing formal had changed. But understanding had deepened. Sometimes that mattered more than treaties. Director Amari stood before another assembly of human leadership, this one celebrating 10 years since expulsion. The gathering was massive, representatives from hundreds of worlds and stations. Behind her, a window displayed the frontier they had built, ships moving between habitats, trade convoys heading to distant systems, the glow of construction projects lighting the darkness. 10 years ago they expelled us, she said simply. They expected us to fail, to crawl back begging for readmission. Instead, we built this, an independent human civilization spanning hundreds of worlds. We proved that humanity doesn't need permission to reach for the stars. We proved that we're stronger than anyone imagined, including ourselves. The crowd cheered, but Amari wasn't finished. But strength alone isn't enough. We've also learned cooperation, building alliances based on mutual respect. We've learned restraint, choosing strategic stability over unlimited expansion. We've learned that being powerful means being responsible. The Council cast us out thinking we were too dangerous to coexist with. We've proven we're too valuable not to work with. She paused, letting her next words carry full weight. The question now isn't whether humanity belongs among the stars. We've answered that definitively. The question is what kind of civilization we become. Do we repeat the Council's mistakes, growing arrogant and isolationist? Or do we build something better, learning from both our successes and their failures? The galaxy is vast enough for many civilizations if we're wise enough to share it. The celebration continued long into the night, but the question lingered. Humanity had taken the galaxy when the Council tried to expel them. Now they had to decide what to do with that power. The answer would determine not just their future, but the future of every species watching this new power rise. And in the darkness between stars, in systems unclaimed and unexplored, that future waited to be written. Humanity had proven they could survive. They had proven they could thrive. Now they would prove they could lead, building a galaxy where strength came with wisdom and power came with responsibility. The Council had expelled them, expecting them to fall. Instead, humanity had risen higher than anyone dreamed possible, and they were just beginning.